Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Morning Update Show. I'm your co host, Trey Holiday. And you guys know I got to throw it on over to my partner, Big O in the house. What's up? Happy Friday Eve, Big O.
I was about to say Friday. I was hoping you were going to say Friday, man. I'm ready for the weekend. Man, good morning. How are you?
I'm well. How are you, my friend?
I'm all right. It's been an interesting 24 hours since we last greeted each other here on the Morning Update Show. A lot of interesting news in the city, of course, um, and across the not only in our community, but even statewide. We got a ruling from the Supreme Court today on the $30 tabs and some of everything else. So we'll touch on that. A few things. So we got Martial Law, the Martial Law Band. Is going to be joining us later on in the show. We got a new single out called Louder. We'll talk about that. And there's also his experience. Martial Law Band was the house band during the Western Barricade.
Yeah.
They were playing every tear gas and all, man. They'd be out there just playing through it. And so we got martial law, but we're gonna be talking about the solidarity budget. I learned more about it yesterday. I really had no idea what it was, and so Julie C is gonna be checking in with us to talk a little bit about that. But first, just to recap, got a few clips from yesterday when we had Council Member Moscata in the building, and we talked to the council member about a few things. One of the things we talked about was the mayor's investment. What are your thoughts on the mayor's $100 million investment into BIPOC communities?
Well, first of all, the money and the investments are needed. There's no question about the need to make sure that we are filling gaps that have been created by decades of disinvestment into our community. But where that money comes from is the $100 million question.
That's the $100 million question. Where'd you go, Trey?
I'm right here. Sorry. It is a $100 million question, my friend.
Well, she's the mayor's adamant that the way that the budgeting works is that everything is the general fund. So it's like, well, is it really coming from Jumpstart or is it coming from another revenue source? And what Moscata is saying is like, okay, the pot would be 200 million smaller if it wasn't for Jumpstart. So then where would you get this money from? So that's your thing there. And you asked a question. This is a big question that's going on right now. It's going to lead into our next segment after this. Is participatory budgeting versus task force? And this was a question that you posed over to the council member. What are your thoughts? Task force, participatory budget?
So one of the things that I raised when we were first asking questions of the mayor's office 2 weeks ago in our committee hearing was, how is this work going to be done in a way that does not yet again ask community members, especially Black and Brown community folks, to be volunteering their time, having their time duplicated, and also not respecting the process that I think many community partners have asked for, which was a true participatory budgeting process. We are going to continue to move forward with supporting the participatory budgeting effort. You probably talked to Council Member Morales recently. She is helping to lead up the effort around investing in the participatory budgeting efforts, along with Council Member Herbold, who is working on the public safety reform issues.
All right, and one more. I'm gonna play one more clip here, Trey, and then we'll follow back up. A lot of people. I reached out to a lot of people before the interview, and every person that I talked to, they were like, "Well, it'd be interesting to know this and that." But everybody wanted to know, is Council Member Moscata running for mayor? And I posed that question to her.
I should probably run pretty soon.
Here it is. Last question right here comes from the Urban Ace. He's actually been live tweeting this whole thing right here. The question is the council member going to run for mayor?
I am very happy with the current work that we are trying to do. I'm extremely fortunate to be able to represent all of Seattle. And right now I'm focused on getting a transparent, accountable, and robust budget passed that invests in communities, especially those who've been historically disinvested in. How about that?
That seems like we'll be following up with you.
All right, sound good.
All right, nice interview yesterday. with Councilmember Moscata. What were some of your takeaways from our conversation with the council member yesterday?
To be honest, it was really great to hear her perspectives and to hear how much in alignment, honestly, Councilmember Mosqueda really is with community. It sounds like, she really is taking, her job seriously in terms of, hey, she represents the all of Seattle, not just one particular district. So how is she taking the voice of all of these Seattleites who are coming together to bring their voices collectively and really tell folks what it is that they want? And it really was interesting and exciting to hear how much in alignment she is with, look, we have to listen to these voices. So I was really pumped by that.
Right. She had a real interesting answer around Health One as well. I asked, I was like, well, in Portland, they took almost $5 million from police and put it into the street response program, which is basically like a Health One down there in Portland. And would there be a similar thing here in Seattle and investing in Health One? She seems to be a proponent of Health One. Or would it be developing community organizations that can respond like Health One? And she said it kind of be some of both, investing in ramping up community organizations while at the same time ramping up Health One to be a backstop for a community. So we'll see how that plays out. Full interview with Councilmember Moscata is up on our Instagram and our YouTube page, and of course on our Facebook page as well. You can see the full interview there. Now, yesterday, of course, Mayor Durkin rolled out the task force. We announced a lot of the names right here on the show, and there was a plot twist yesterday, a turn of events. Oh man, let me find it. Where is it at? Where's my clip? Oh, here it is, right here. It says, "Oops, Black Lives Matter doesn't want to be in the task force." Oh man, hold on. Actually, I've got a screen grab of it. Here we go. Much better angle. "Oops, Black Lives Matter does not want to be in Durkin's task force." And it was a flurry of events yesterday. It was a lot of press releases that were coming back and forth. That was released by Black Lives Matter, Seattle, King County. In the original press release, they said that on June 6th, they demanded that Mayor Durkin invest $100 million and that the money needed to come from the Seattle Police Department, and it needed to be a black-led task force. So that's what they're saying, that they met with the mayor on the 6th, and they made that demand. If you recall, June 7th is when the mayor came out and made the announcement about the $100 million investment. But there's a bit of, that press release was then removed from their Twitter, from their page. But yeah, and it says here that, in another release, they basically left the task force, but then it put out a few more releases, and they corrected it in saying that the city did not make an error in including them in the task force. The group cited a miscommunication with the mayor's office. It's unclear what the miscommunication is, but Kamaria Hightower, who's a spokesperson for the mayor, said that Black Lives Matter Seattle King County initially rescinded the invitation only after the press release about the task force was spread broadly. So I don't know if the press release went out and people was feeling some kind of way, and then it was like, nah, we're not on this or anything else. But here's the most interesting thing about all of this. Two interesting things. One, in the original press release, they're saying that Mayor Durkin agreed to fund $100 million by defunding the SPD by $100 million. Now, I've never heard the mayor use that kind of language. She's been clearly against that route of defund from day one. So, I've never heard the mayor say she was going to take $100 million from the police. But most interesting thing here is that according to Hightower, and this is on the Stranger, by the way, the Black Lives Matter Seattle King County wants a third process separate from the Equitable Communities Initiative and from King County Equity Now. That third process would be a defund task force and an interim black commission jointly appointed by Durkin and the city council to conduct a needs assessment plan for the $100 million and to allow the black commission to participate in SPD bargaining. So Black Lives Matter Seattle King County is proposing a third route now, different from participatory budgeting and different from the mayor's task force and everything else. I thought this was a good opportunity because when I spoke to Julie C yesterday, Julie C was telling me about a solidarity budget. And I'm like, man, what is the solidarity budget? You know, there's new things to me. I learn something new every day. And I thought that it's a good opportunity to bring Julie on because if people are already talking about different routes, a third route, maybe a fourth route, something like that, then let's figure out what else is out there. So let me bring Julie in here. Let's see here. Julie! Can you hear me, Julie?
Good morning.
You're on mute.
Good morning, Omar.
You gotta unmute yourself. There you go. How are you this morning?
I am.
No, you're not on mute anymore.
No, you're okay now.
I don't think I was on mute.
We got to send tech support over there too. Julie, tell us, man, what is? Let's bring you up over here. What is the solidarity budget? What's this all about?
So, solidarity budget was something that came up last Tuesday. It was an open letter written by coalition organizations in response, actually, to the mayor's first announcement that she was going to be having a task force that she is cherry picking to disperse the $100 million. And it was in response to what we were hearing at the time, that the $100 million that she was going to be promising communities was going to be taken from the Jumpstart budget, which of course is a fund that a lot of community organizations worked really hard to get. So it really came to point out that, one, these aren't new funds. These aren't consistent with, the promises you made to community as far as it being a new investment into community. It's not true. And two, to serve the purpose of getting together, the organizations that first fought for this money, and then the organizations and community advocates that have been participating in the budgeting process, who will be stakeholders, to stand together and say we're not going to stand for this as a solution. It really is. I wouldn't say that this is a third or fourth or fifth lane. This is more just reinforcing that the organizations, the community here in Seattle want a truly democratic and participatory budget process that is already being kicked off. And we would like the city and the mayor's office specifically to honor that process and let it play out.
So is the solidarity budget part of King County Equity Now's existing efforts or push for participatory budgeting, or is this something that's separate but friendly, all within kind of the same space?
I would say this is separate, but definitely in solidarity, in support of the work being led by KC Equity Now, who is a part of this coalition that's coming together. And there are versions of the early open letter that was written, just declaring, it has a list of all these organizations. I think there's already 100 plus organizations here that are signed on, including KCEN, but definitely way broader. There's labor folks represented. There's all different kinds of cultural organizations, environmental organizations, and it's a really broad base that is standing together and in solidarity with KCEN. And so against this process that the mayor has been pushing for, that really seems something very different from what she had originally committed.
Right. And so what are some of the key points in this solidarity budget? What are people wanting as far as what do they want to see money spent on?
I think first and foremost, people want to make sure that the money is, one, not coming from funds that were already supposed to go into community, not pulling from human services, not pulling from Jumpstart, making sure that that money, one, is coming from defunding police directly, and pushing for that. Two, making sure that how that money is allocated is a process that community is going to be involved in. And this is something that the KCEN team has been working on all summer, as far as getting the word out and doing, community-led research. And so making sure that process is being honored as a part versus this task force that Durkin has been pushing for also from the beginning. So it's just two of the main points. That there's going to be another statement, I think, released later this week or early next week, and a press conference hopefully Monday. You'll be hearing more about the solidarity budget. I think it's going to be a big push, but it's definitely aligned with what we're seeing coming out of KC Equity Now and the rest of the community.
All right, and one more question from my side. I don't know if Triana has a question for you too, but we see now that Black Lives Matter, Seattle, King County. It was a lot of stuff there yesterday. The releases right here. Reading this article from The Stranger, from their slog. What are you taking away from all of this in the overall conversation? Because as well, you're a journalist, you're a writer, you do a lot of stuff. You've been monitoring these situations. What did you take away from yesterday with these multiple press releases with Black Lives Matter, Seattle, King County, as well as them? They said that they demanded the money on June 6th, and the mayor announced the money on June 7th.
I'm sorry, the question, you're cutting out a little bit. The question was, what about the thoughts on the press release?
What do you think of all the releases and everything yesterday from Black Lives Matter, Seattle, King County?
It's been very interesting. I was definitely, what you said when you said the plot twist about BLM removing themselves from the task force definitely was very interesting. It was interesting to read that they're requesting a process that sounds actually similar in spirit to what has already been happening all summer, from an effort that they left earlier this summer for controversial reasons. So it seems it's hard what that would even look like without being exactly what is already being done by KC Equity Now, and it sounds like what they're asking for is a combination between the mayor's solution and KC Equity Now's sort of approach. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I would love to hear more people's thoughts on that, and I'm sure you'll be covering that.
I'd love to hear from King County Equity. I'd love to hear from King County Equity. From Black Lives Matter, Seattle, King County directly. I'm saying, and offer them platform for the general public out here and stakeholders to understand their perspective and where they're coming from. So again, Black Lives Matter, Seattle, King County, we'd love to have you here on the platform and talk about where you're coming from on this. Did you have any questions for Julie, Triana?
Yeah, Julie, I just wanted to say that, in response to Councilmember Mosqueda's interview yesterday and hearing her be so in alignment, honestly, with a lot of the kind of community demand, community voice, I wanted to hear your perspective in terms of how the council has been seeming like they're really standing in solidarity with community and how that may play out in this solidarity budget.
I'm so sorry. It was cutting out. I'm having some technical issues with.
Man, where you
It's okay.
where you
No
live
worries.
at, Julie?
No worries. Last question.
Yeah, no, it was there's a little bit of a lag. No worries.
Hey, we gonna cut you loose right here, Julie. But when we talk to you again, man, we're gonna send you the starter kit out there. We're gonna send you some headphones. We gonna send.
We'll make sure the Wi-Fi is strong.
We're going to send everything to him. We're going to cut you loose right here, Julie. We'll catch up with you soon.
Bye.
All right. Just a follow-up on your question to her, though. What's your thoughts on how council is doing?
Yeah, for me, it's giving me a real sense of hope that we are doing the right thing in Seattle. We're turning the right corner. That's what it feels like. And yesterday's interview very much felt like that. The fact that this is historical. We've seen this before. We've heard community have a kind of process or demand. We've seen the mayor or whoever else is in charge at the time do something different because they see it a different way. And it always feels like for community community, for me, it always makes me feel like, dang, we're not smart enough, we're not capable enough, we're not, efficient enough, or we're not something enough that allows for what we're saying to matter enough to then be the guiding voice. And so really it's exciting to hear so much about how the council is really staying in alignment with the voice of the people. I think that's really, again, turning the right corner.
All right, and so now it's the day after, and yesterday it was important that we moved the news story along. We had a really tight schedule yesterday. We had Shikundi on live talking about the ballots, and of course we had the council member, and that was a really long list of people. I didn't expect it to be that long once we got it, so we didn't have a lot of time for just general analysis. Now the day after the list is out, what are some of your thoughts, Triana?
Well, for me, I think it's interesting. There's that was my word yesterday. I mean, it's been very interesting to kind of absorb the names on the list, and then also this kind of fallout that happened yesterday with Black Lives Matter, Seattle, King County. I think it's there's certain players. It's unfortunate the way that Seattle is kind of set up is that there are certain players who kind of, play to a certain constituency, which some in the community would feel is more, maybe they're led by like white, somebody who is white, right? Like, it's like, that doesn't really, why is that organization doing that kind of work when that's not really how we're going to impact the Black community or any of these disparities that we really see? And there's a lot of organizations like that. And so looking at the list, I was like, okay, I'm familiar with some of these organizations, some of these individuals, and some of these names. I wasn't that surprised by some of those names because unfortunately, what happens in Seattle is that there's factions that have different agendas or different intentions, or they do a different approach. Let's just say that maybe their intentions are one and the same. I have been connected to Tabor 100 years in the past, and I think they're an amazing organization. But I do think sometimes that folks that are included in Tabor 100 are not as connected to kind of the younger community voice, and like there's a bit of a break in generational understandings around a lot of this, and some of those names kind of came from that generational break, in my opinion.
Right, and what we did, I did an AMA last night. I went live. I was by myself. It was like fumbling around all the buttons and everything, but we made it through. One of the big things that people were asking about is youth, people who don't have a route to City Hall. Yeah. So I think everybody on the task force has a direct route to City Hall. Almost everybody there could probably, talk to the mayor or to the chief of staff or to a spokesperson directly on any day, which is good because you got people who have know the process. But there wasn't that many people on there who don't have a route to City Hall. Who, one of the things that even the mayor highlighted this summer is there's a lot of new leaders out there. There's a lot of new blood. There's people, and I think all those experiences are valuable. You need somebody who knows the system, who knows how to navigate it, who can also tell you like, well, we could try this. We tried it 5 years ago. It worked or didn't work. Those are important people to have. But it's also people, I think it's important, who they don't know the system. It's brand new. It's coming to them fresh and from the streets and come with some innovative ideas and everything else. So one of the responses that we got a lot was young, youth and youth people and youth leaders. The other thing, me personally, as a small business owner, as an entrepreneur, I find that the majority of the people that are on the task force, and not being hypercritical or anything, but the majority of the people that are on the task force work for organizations. I want to see more people who struggle for profit and loss. You know what I'm saying? Every day I wake up like, man, we're going to stay in business. How are we going to pay this paycheck? Yeah. Here's this bill. And so it's a lot of people who are, they're funded, and either they're funded by grants they're funded by taxpayers. They're funded by all these other things. Their struggle might not necessarily be the same as a lot of people who are out here. And I'm not saying that their voice isn't as important, but I think that there should be more voices of people who are entrepreneurs, people who are out there, trying to make it. We saw in education, I think it's fantastic. You have the president of Seattle Central. You got Trish over at Taft, and Taft's done amazing things, but it'll be interesting to get, have like the principal of Rainier Beach, you know what I'm saying? Or something like that, who's in Seattle public schools every single day, who's in the schools, who's dealing with these kids, or, teachers, things like that. And the other thing is, we got a lot of response on is there's nobody who's representing the people who are trying to bring it into gun violence in our community. Right. And violence among youth. And that really stuck out. And I think it stuck out a lot of people as well because, we just did the gun violence roundtable. We saw the raw emotion and the need around that, but we didn't necessarily see that on the task force.
Yeah, I think that what you're describing actually, is the very reasons why community did not want a hand-picked mayoral task force. Is exactly why, because the representation then becomes elitist. It becomes about the people that have those contacts, that have the connections. The fact that the mayor even appointed folks, there's certain folks that she's not going to know, right, to even appoint them. And so I think that you're right in that regard. I think this is why a lot of folks don't have a lot of trust in a task force. We've seen it go awry before. And I think that, again, it's not really representative of a lot of the work that's being done on the ground, unfortunately.
Right. Now, from the mayor's side, I've had a lot of conversations back and forth. There's a lot of media to back and forth with the mayor. And I actually made a suggestion to the mayor's office this morning. Just come out with an FAQ. It's a lot of people who have questions, and not even like, on some hate or anything. It's just general questions because the task force members are supposed to be getting paid. How much are they going to get paid? What are the metrics of success? What are this and that? And, how often are they going to meet and everything else? And so we're expecting some kind of FAQ document out of the mayor's office. Hopefully today or tomorrow we can share with the community and everything else. But here's a few things that they've said from their side. They're said that one part of this, they're open for participatory budget, and they're saying that it would be the task force to determine how much of this $100 million goes into a participatory process. That's one thing. Two, they said that if the task force can be expanded, if the task force feels that there's underrepresentation in a certain area, then the task force can agree to add more members to the task force. There's a few other caveats in there as well. I mean, I'm sure that we'll be discussing this for a while to come, but yeah, like I said, for me, I think it's important to have people on there who are. And we don't know the 19 people. I mean, and this is actually a question somebody wanted to ask you today, because they're like, King County Equity Now is not on there. Africatown's not on there. Now, you check both of those boxes. You're part of King County Equity Now. You're part of Africatown Community Land Trust. Triana Holiday, why aren't you on the task force? Because you were clearly invited to be on it.
I was. And once again, I think that the two organizations that you just mentioned, me starting my work in community at Africatown Community Land Trust, and then King County Equity Now actually starting as an initiative and campaign of ACLT. To be honest, I have to stand in solidarity with the community. We know that what people really want is to push for participatory budgeting. We heard Councilmember Mosqueda attest to that yesterday, and it is still the will of the community and the will of the people. Technically speaking, it would have really been wrong for me to be on that task force and to go with the mayor's plan and to kind of say, well, at least we have some representatives on there. No, we all had to really stand in solidarity here and say that, just like Sean Good and myself, there were several others within King County Equity Now that were approached to be on the task force and declined, because ultimately we know that what we really want is a more inclusive voice. I'll say this, task force, we just saw it is 25 people. You said it can be expanded. They get to choose all of this. Participatory budgeting allows for hundreds of thousands of voices to participate in the process. So you can't really deny the fact that those two approaches are very different in nature. They really are, in terms of the way that community is trying to do it. They're trying to move forward collectively and collaboratively, and a task force just doesn't allow that.
All right, let's see. Somebody put something up here. Dre Franklin. Hey, what's up, Dre? Afro. He said that the post COVID look. He hasn't got the haircut since March.
Yeah.
No one on the ground is in the task force. The members are all involved in nonprofits that are part of the system at large. Not to say they're not good folks, and I think most people would agree. These people on this task force are very capable and well, and they've been doing good things. Folks on the task force, but they are representing the organizations they work for. In that, and we got to move on to the next segment here. But in that, I would just say that, everybody is representing an organization outside of. I think there's a restaurant owner that's on there and everything else. In all fairness, and I'm not speaking directly to these organizations that are on the task force, but Seattle's had a long history of funding organizations that let the community down. You know what I'm saying? We've got a lot of collective failures across a lot of organizations, and so that's why to me I'm like, well, maybe we shouldn't necessarily be picking people based on an organization that they're in, but maybe we should be looking at people because there's a lot of people who are impacting folks on the ground who aren't part of any specific well-known organization, but if you're on the ground, they're actually impactful and insightful. But I know that we'll be talking about this from time to come. We'll be looking for a FAQ from the mayor. We're also reaching out to some of the people who are on the task force to see if they want to have like a forum, to ask them why did they join and what is it that they're looking for and what are some of the deliverables that are out there. Moving on, I talked to Kevin Schofield actually 2 days ago, and we couldn't air this yesterday because of time. Kevin Schofield spent 2 weeks going over the data from Seattle Municipal Court, and it turns out that there's still a huge disparity in the way that fines are managed down there in the municipal court. Black people make up 7.4% of Seattle's population, but man, on some fines, if you look at the whole thing here, some fines, they're up at like 20, 30, and there's another one that's 48%. This is just a short clip from our overall interview. The whole interview was about 26, 27 minutes. You'll be able to find the whole interview on our Converge Media YouTube page as well as our Instagram. But here's Kevin Schofield giving some insight as to some of the disparities down there in the municipal court.
When they look at the output from the court system, from Seattle Municipal Court, they see there's definitely racial disparities there. When they look farther in, it looks like it's not really as much what's happening inside the court system as what's coming into the courts from police. So I sort of took that as, a challenge to go figure out, what's coming to the court system. And I went and asked the police department for all the data on their traffic tickets, both the criminal and non-criminal ones, because that's just a huge number. It's about, it's about 40,000 a year across like 2018, 2019. And what's surprising was, SPD actually doesn't have that data. For 8 years of consent decree, they've been looking at, Terry stops, they've been looking at uses of force, they've been looking at all sorts of things, but they never looked at traffic citation data, at least from what they tell me, they've never looked at it. So I went back to the Seattle Municipal Court and I got their data on it. I sat down and I looked at it, and it turns out that there really is a bunch of pretty significant disparities in how Seattle police officers actually issue traffic tickets to people, both criminal and non-criminal. On the just non-criminal, traffic citations for, busted taillight or something like that, the numbers are pretty significant in terms of how many more of those go to, proportionally go to Black people than to white people. So, just in context, Black people are about 7 to 7.5% of the overall population in Seattle, and they get 37% of the tickets for busted taillight. They get 30% of the tickets for busted headlamp. 22% of the tickets for not wearing your seatbelt go to Black people, right? So that's part of the problem coming into the court system is that there are just these clear racial disparities in what happens there. And it's a huge problem that they're not looking at this, right? The way in the consent decree they've been looking at all these other things. So that's a start of the problem. Then what happens when the stuff gets into the court system is that for white people, 50% of the time they just pay the ticket, but it's less than a quarter of the time for people of color. And in fact, when you look at sort of tickets that are defaulted on, when people just don't pay them, they don't show up to court and they don't pay them, you see pretty much the opposite. It's a very small percentage for white people, but it's 36% of the tickets that black people get. In 2018 and 2019, they defaulted on. And that's a problem because when you default on a ticket, they automatically revoke, they suspend your driver's license, right? So then that's just, not only is that cruel to people who can't afford to pay a ticket, because a huge number of those defaulted tickets are from people who just can't afford to pay the ticket, right? So now that's cruel to them. You've made it harder on them. And from a public policy perspective, it's just a terrible policy because now you've made it harder for the set of people to actually earn a living and pay their bills and, be upstanding members of the community and pay their fine. But you've also, if you have a suspended license, that means you can't get car insurance. So there are more people on the roads who are driving without car insurance. They're driving uninsured. So just from a public policy perspective, and judges don't have any kind of discretion over this. The state law says if you default on a traffic ticket, they have to suspend your license on that.
Yeah, we've seen this time and time again. And further in our conversation there with Kevin, yeah, exactly. That's not any news for black people. I told Kevin, I was like, man, this is the same story 30 years ago, is that a lot of stuff comes down to discretion. And the discretion is real. We heard, I played a clip from Lauren Culp, who's running for governor, who's actually a chief of police over in a very small department, but chief of police. And he talks about, hey, we've all been pulled over by a cop and they use their discretion to give you a ticket or not. And I'm thinking to myself, there's a population here who's never had that. You know what I'm saying? Of where discretion is used. And so it looks like, man, there's quite the, like Kevin said, that there's just more fines coming into the municipal court for black people. There's only so much that the court can do, but there's more fines that are coming in. It's highly disproportionate.
Yeah, highly disproportionate once again. And I agree with Dre, not news for black people. This is not even news that it's highly disproportionate, to be honest, though, because so many things are highly disproportionate. This is why there's a push on the streets. I mean, once again, when you see that, we talked about this discretion, they also have the discretion to either pull you over or not pull you over, right? I mean, all of these things are really under their discretion. And based on that, when we see statistics like this and numbers that are stark like this, you can't deny the fact that there's also some type of racial bias that is built into their discretion. That's how you have to look at this. It has to be really redesigned from the inside out completely. And this is why defund is such a big movement right now, because the discretion and the racial bias is actually built into how they look at us.
All right, we're going to take a short break right now. When we come back, we got Marshall and Matt from the Marshall Law Band. You are watching the Morning Update Show.
My parents coming over here as refugees meant that they didn't really have anything when they came to America. Having reliable healthcare and having a reliable doctor was really important. 共同của tôi, trạm y tế của tôi.
我的社区，我的诊所。Mi comunidad, mi clínica.
بلشدة هي بقارها.
My community, my clinic.
We're the Yarbros. I'm Taco.
I'm Tia.
And this is our love story.
So we've been together for 14 years and married for 12.
So we met at a choir rehearsal.
No.
Which way?
We met at church.
Oh, you talking about the very first?
The very first interaction.
When you were shady. Okay.
I was not shady.
And I was like, will
I
you?
remember that.
And then it cuts off. And then I was like, marry me. And then I feel the
But it stopped being about each other. And so COVID helped us to return to, wow.
We matter. You and I matter.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for listening to our love story.
For the Yarbroughs
and vote Black love.
Yeah, I don't know how this election is going to go, but you can't go wrong voting Black love. Welcome back to the Morning Update Show. My name is Omari Salisbury.
I'm Trey Holiday.
And we're joined by Marshall and Matt of the Martial Law Band. Good morning, fellas.
What's poppin'? What's poppin'? Thank you for having us on.
All right. So the last time, I only see you now virtually, but the last time I really saw you face to face, man, these were the days of the Western Barricade and in the early days of CHOP. And I got to tell people, it was crazy. I think it was like day number 2 of the Western Barricade, and down there, and I see a setup for a band, and it kind of like blew my mind the minute, because everybody got tear gassed the day before. And I was like, man, there's a band set up down here. This is like a dangerous space. And next thing you know, it's the Martial Law Band, and you guys set up and just started jamming down there the whole time we were there in Western Barricade into an early part of the CHOP. And yeah, it's still a vivid memory for me, man. Before we go into, I know you got a new single out and everything. Tell us real quick, what was the impetus? Like, why did you guys feel that it was important for you to come down there and play your music? And not only play your music, you didn't run away. I know you guys took a lot of tear gas, you took a lot of pepper spray, you took some rubber bullets, and you kept playing, man. What brought you down there, and what made you stay?
Shoot, Omari, man, it's you, brother. It's you, man. I can't lie. The day before we went out there,
Wow.
I myself and the band, we had been out there a couple times just trying to look and observe and try to find our role within it. And then I went home that night and I watched you get tear gas for like the 3rd night in a row, and you were screaming. I remember you were like, "Where is leadership? Where is leadership?" And
I did say that.
honestly, it felt like a direct call out to us, because we view ourselves as leaders in a different way in our community. And we knew we didn't necessarily have the skill set, or maybe we do, but the passion for being on there in the front lines. But we can use our music and our platform to give people some energy and some hope out there, and hopefully provide a different type of leadership. So y'all brought us out there.
Man, well, that's interesting to find out. I'm glad you guys were there. It was some nights on the stream, it was crazy, because on Pine, it would just be like chaos, and then you just walk right there at 11th to Pike, and here's a Martial Law Band playing, and everybody's just over there dancing and everything else. And so yeah, it was man, it seems like it was like 2 years ago now, but it was just a few months ago.
We really just tried to bring some balance to the equation, man. Out there, it was like you're saying, so chaotic and aggressive in nature, that we just saw that this is how we can contribute. And if we can inspire people to find their own lane to contribute, it's going to take all types. You know what I'm saying? I need the people who feel comfortable and empowered standing in the front line doing that. I need people who are computer, specialists over here tweaking on the computer. I need people who are working at the legislation level to be listening to the people that they're supporting and guiding and speaking on the behalf of. And all those people need to be working together. Otherwise, it's just going to sit here in the mud.
We got a comment here, Vanessa Kaysen. It was like the violins playing when the Titanic was sinking. The police were tear gassing everyone. It was chaos, but you could hear the band play on. It was amazing.
Hey, when she took my question, man, that's what I was going to say. I was going to say, you guys have had to hear that reference before, because that's what I experienced with you guys out there. It was like chaos all around, but you guys were jamming out the whole time, and honestly, really setting the tone for those of us who stayed so consistently out there. Like, no, we got to press on. So when I was out there, when I got to experience y'all, I'll say that much. I felt the same. I had to hear that before.
People said it was like the Revolutionary War drummers and stuff too. For us, people kept running by like, they're coming, they're not going to stop. We're like, hey, we're not going to stop.
I ain't running nowhere, bro. I got a drum set. We got sound equipment. I got a stage. Like,
so I gotta keep it real, man. Some of the hardest people around the Seattle protest was the artists, right? And so like another example is Brian Culpepper. July 25th. I mean, that was the day everybody got beat down. It was crazy. And so you had the protesters and the police right there at Seattle Central College, and Culpepper puts all of his art up there on the wall. And you know, it's well because you really have the police, the protesters engaged. It's flashbangs. There's pepper spray going. He's just in there just drawing it, and everybody's like, "Dude, what are you doing?" He was like, "Somebody got to be calm." So it kind of reminds me, especially of that last Sunday. It was the night of June 7th. And that was a crazy night up there on the hill. The National Guard's moving in. They're coming down 11th towards Pike to where you guys were at. And it was literally one of those nights where everybody was like, man, you know, running down the street. And the band kept playing. I guess that's what got you guys that known as the Seattle Protest, or the CHOP, or the Western Barricade, the Protest House Band. So.
Yeah. I mean, you know how it goes. Oh, that the media be taking everything and running with it. I think what we hold on to the most is when like 1:30, 2 a.m. hit and they were still going down, and some protesters decided to sit by our stage and protect us no matter what was going to happen. And when they turned around and we were playing Cleos and they marched back, that feeling of resistance, like we really stood together and stood for something as a unit, that's something that can never, can't be duplicated, it can't be replicated, and it can't be taken away from the people that experienced that moment. So it was life altering in so many ways. And now the media is going to call us whatever. They called me Chaz Marshall of Antifa on Fox News. So, you can't control that type of stuff.
Right. Well, you know, it's I think that a lot of people, especially there in those early days, nobody really knew up from down. All you knew was to be present. Me, all I knew what to do was just to have my phone and record, and not necessarily always just the interactions between the police and protesters, but record people, talk to them. Why are you here? This is all we knew what to do. So, you know, what you guys knew what to do was to play, and that you did. Let's talk about this new single out now. A new single called Louder. Tell us about it.
Well, what you want to let them know, Matt?
Man, it's really like our ode to James Brown, man, the Godfather, the hardest working man in show business. And, you know, his message when he came out with Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud, was revolutionary at the time, was groundbreaking at the time, was powerful and empowering for people who had been beaten down for hundreds of years. And so our, I guess, role in carrying the torch, the next leg of the race, is just to say it louder, you know, like, I'm Black and I'm proud.
Absolutely. and you know, for us, and they're talking, you know, the segment prior before we came on with the Black Love segment, it's really that same sentiment of, hey, we see Black people getting murdered. We see people getting beat up. We see Black people upset all the time. It's time to show some positive Black imagery that shows the 360 approach that Black people have towards life, even during moments of struggle. So the song itself, it reflects that same chaotic things we were just talking about, but the imagery shows the triumphant spirit of Black people, especially here in Seattle. You know, we're a small group. We got to stick our chest out and let people know, like, even if we're only 7%, you're going to feel us here in this city.
All right. So we got a small clip right here that we'll play right now.
I'm Black and proud. Let me introduce y'all to my family. Granddaddy went from slavery to the army. South Central LA, where he raised Randy, who taught me, son, cops don't play. Marshall just do, yeah, whatever they say. They power hungry and they just might spray. Just live to fight another day. You know good to nobody dead. So I remember one time I was doing just fine with the windows down and seat on recline. Out the corner of my eye saw some flashing blue lights and I thought, God, I might die. Yeah, he came to my side, told me step outside, and I said, officer, why? He said to see if you got warrants. See, hatred is apparent even though you've never done a crime. Proud. 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 Woo! I'm Black and proud. Say it now, say it loud. Heavy is my crown. I'm Black and proud.
All right, Marshall.
That is a hot song and video. I'm gonna just say that right now. I'm gonna just say, number one fan right here. I tell y'all, man, that is a hot.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, that video shoot looked fun. How come I never get invited to the fun? People invite me to talk on panels about police and protests. I don't get no invite to the video shoot.
Hey, y'all got our role, Big O. Come on, we're making the You're on the next one.
We just had Converge shoot the last music video we did with the gutter balls.
Yeah, y'all gonna get the invite on. This is the last time you won't see. Well, actually, we have a couple.
Well, see, now I'm not in that with it. It's fine. I know you just call me up when you need to get on the show. Like,
yeah. Hey, come on, my bad, Big O.
No, man. You know, it's all love. But before we let you get out of here, I mean, clearly you guys are releasing a single because you have an upcoming album. Just tell us a little bit about when the album's coming out and what people can expect to find on there.
Absolutely. So this is we're premiering this video on our own YouTube channel. We're trying to get like Converge and build some ownership. So we want to say thank you all so much for just playing that clip. You guys can see the full video 7 p.m. on the Martial Law Band YouTube. I'm sure y'all will link it. And then we're dropping our album, which is called 12th and Pine, on October 23rd. Pre-sales are out available everywhere. And if you're a real one, you can go to Bandcamp and just buy it outright. And again, we're trying to put Black dollars into Black people's pockets, you feel me, directly. And so we all know how streaming services do, people. So we're trying to find ways to circumnavigate that and put money, because we put up our own money to create this independent venture that we're doing here. So yeah, 12th and Pine comes out October 3rd or 23rd. We got a bunch of different videos, a documentary, a graphic novel, big O's on the back cover and whatnot. So we pulled out all the stops to let people know about the experience we just went through this summer, and let people know that you're going to have a soundtrack to continue to fight towards, because this is a marathon, not a sprint, and we're going to be right here playing music for y'all.
I love it.
Go ahead, Matt.
Go ahead.
All the music we wrote on this album, minus 2 songs, came from our experience down there at the Chop. We went from playing, 6-hour sets each night, and then there was just this void again. Because of COVID, we haven't been gigging. So we went from a 50-day national tour to 60 days, not a single rehearsal. And so after that, we just had all this energy and emotion and experience, and we just went away together and got an Airbnb on an island, just stayed out there for 4 days, wrote the album, came straight from the Airbnb to the studio, and just hunkered it out in 5 days. And this is the result of that.
Man, good stuff. People can also go on the Where We Converge website to under podcasts, as well as on Spotify, on Apple, on Google, and SoundCloud. And you can catch my interview that I did with Martial Law. We did a series called Citizens of the Chop, and it was recorded during the Chop. So we interviewed 10 people right there when the Chop was going on. It's called Citizens of the Chop, and there's actually an episode there with Martial Law. Matt, Marshall, wishing you guys the best of luck. The track sounds hot. That's 7 o'clock tonight on the Martial Law Band YouTube page. They're doing the premiere there. Go ahead and support these guys. Album is out October 23rd. It's called 12th and Pine. We're going to take a short break right now. When we come back, we got... You're very welcome. We got producer Nikki Barron talking about the census. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
We're the Yard Bros. I'm Taco.
I'm Tia.
And this is our love story.
So we've been together for 14 years and married for 12.
So we met at a choir rehearsal.
No.
Which way?
We met at church.
Oh, you talking about the very first?
The very first interaction.
When you were shady. Okay.
I was not shady.
Right, and I was like, will you?
I remember that.
And then it cuts off, and then I was like, marry me. And then I feel these roars.
But it stopped being about each other. And so COVID helped us to return to, wow.
We matter. You and I matter.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to our love story.
We're the Yard Bros.
And vote Black love.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. This segment, we're joined by producer extraordinaire Nikki Barron, and she's going to tell us everything going on with Census, because it looks like with the Supreme Court ruling, the Census is winding down early. What's up, Nikki?
Hey, yes, the census. It's so important. And today is the last day that you can submit.
Today's the last day.
Yes, today is the very last day. Yep.
Okay, so
yeah, it's down to the wire on this. Yeah, they
yeah,
tried
no,
to
I thought you
extend
were.
it.
Go ahead.
So they tried to extend it, but that got struck down. So they wanted to extend it because we're in a national pandemic or international pandemic, national crisis. So and we can't get out of our homes. Normally, census, a good chunk of it is actually done from people going door to door and encouraging people to fill out their census. And there's actually something that starts in April, which are usually community gatherings around the census. So people put on events so you can come and get counted. But we don't have that because of COVID.
Right. I know one of the things when I talk to people and they had an inhibition maybe about the census was like, where's their data actually? These days, when you even talk about 10 years ago, it wasn't so much concern about data and data privacy and data misuse.
Yeah. So a big scary thing that happened was that they tried that the White House, the Trump White House, tried to push to get put a citizen question on the census, and that question is not on the census. So it doesn't matter if you are a citizen or not. You've got to get counted. And when you think about the census, there's that fear like, oh, somebody could misuse my data, especially if you're a person of color, especially somebody who had that experience or had a family member that had that experience during World War II when the census data was actually misused and used as a way to track Japanese people in America and put them into concentration camps. So after that happened, there was a big push to get that dropped, that ability to drop. So now we have Title 13, which actually forbids for any reason for your data to be shared outside of the Census Bureau. So you're actually, if you're worried about the government having your information, you should actually be more worried about social media because Title 13 does not protect you with social media. So the government is more likely to push for your demographic data from Facebook and have that ability to get it than they would be pushing the Census Bureau. So you're safer filling out your census than you are posting on Facebook.
Now, there was a big push by celebrities and some of everybody to get people to get out and fill out the census. We saw here on the local level, different community organizations, on the national level, and even a few rap stars.
We have the power to decide our city's future, not just for the next 4 years, but for the next 10 by getting counted in the census. The census is about power, money, and respect for our communities. If our city is undercounted, we risk being underrepresented, especially our communities of color. In 2010, only 62% of New Yorkers responded to the census, with the lowest response rates in our Black and brown communities. In 2020, I'm going to tell you something. We can let this happen again. If you want to stand up to the status quo and defy people in power who wants to silence us, start by getting counted in the census. The census is safe, easy for everyone. And remember, the citizenship question is off the census. No matter what anybody tells you, immigrants with or without papers count too. Mi gente.
Yo, so my only question on that is, how does Cardi B fill out the census with those long nails?
You just see her on her phone. She's pretty quick. Yeah.
All right, so what? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say the census is super important because it's not just about getting counted. It tells the government things like where we should get funding for schools, where we should put hospitals, how many representatives we get in the federal government. Like, it matters so much. So if your community is already getting a lower amount of resources and then you don't participate in the census, there's no budget that's going to come your way. So you have to participate so that when they're doing the budgeting, your community gets its fair share of money.
Right. And last thing here is, so what are people doing? Are we talking to people whose census envelope is still sitting just there at their house and haven't filled it out? Is that the only option? Today's the last day. What exactly are you wanting people to do?
So if you have not filled out your census and you don't have your census envelope, it doesn't matter. You can go to 2020census.gov, and there is a way that you can fill out your census without your census ID. So you just go to the website, start the questionnaire, and below where it asks you for the ID, you'll actually click I do not have a census ID. And that will still get you counted, even if you threw the envelope away or misplaced it. You only need one per household. So check with the other people in your household if you have roommates or if you have a multifamily home, because only one person per household needs to fill that out. But you've got to get it filled out today because it is the deadline. And we need to get our Black and brown communities, they need to be counted. We need to get those resources.
All right, producer Nikki Barron, always bringing the right info right on time. We're going to take a short break right now. When we come back, it's me and Trey. Hey, whose phone is that? Hello? Hello? You're watching the Morning Update Show.
My parents coming over here as refugees meant that they didn't really have anything when they came to America. Having reliable healthcare and having a reliable doctor was really important. Gong dong kutoy, jam ite kutoy.
我的社区，我的诊所，mi comunidad, mi clínica.
بلشدة هي بقارها.
My community, my clinic.
All right, Trey Holiday.
Hey, Big O.
Man, it's been an interesting few days here, huh?
Oh yeah, this already it does feel like a Friday. We're not there yet, but I feel you, bro. Very heavy news week.
So I think that's all we have here for today. And I got something special. I'm gonna save it till tomorrow. Tomorrow's Feel Good Friday. I found something real special. I want to play for everybody tomorrow. Then also tomorrow we've got a guest. Tell us about the guest tomorrow.
Absolutely. We got LaTanya coming from Sisters Rock the Arts, definitely heavy in community, going to be sharing a little bit about their upcoming live stream later on tomorrow night, doing a tribute to Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And so they'll be having some speakers. I will actually be one of the speakers there, some live music and uplifting this message that we keep it alive and in the hearts of all of us, that we need to really understand it still needs reform. Domestic violence is on the rise. So I'm glad that LaTanya will be there tomorrow on the show to actually share that event for folks.
Domestic violence is definitely on the rise. Like I said, 2020 is already a record year. 15 domestic violence homicides in King County. To put that in comparison, for all of 2018 and 2019, there was 14 domestic violence homicides for 2018-19 combined. This year, 2020, there's already 15 domestic violence homicides. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So we look forward to having LaTanya on here tomorrow morning from Sisters Rock the Arts. Anything else before we go?
You know what? Chats with Trey is coming on tomorrow. I want to start promoting that so folks know tomorrow, every Friday, 2 p.m. Had a great production meeting last night, so it will definitely always be on. And I'll be making sure I plug it better on the Morning Update Show. But you guys, I'm excited for the episode tomorrow. We're going to have Erica from the ULA company. So, stay tuned, get some new looks, and she's going to be sharing some little fresh fashion with us on Chats with Trey tomorrow at 2.
All right. Well, in that case, we're going to get out of here until tomorrow at 11 a.m. Peace.
Lift every voice and sing till earth in heaven ring with the harmonies of let our rejoicing rise as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun.